Motocross is one of my favorite hobbies, and I want to tell you guys a story about a time where me and a couple of my buddies recently got to go riding. Our favorite place to ride is the sand dunes. We love going to ride down on the sand dunes because the jumps are massive. One of my buddies, he's a little bit more ambitious than the rest of us, and he was going to hit one of these bigger jumps, and he was going to attempt a trick that none of us had done before. The trick that he was going to go for is going to be called the Superman. As you can tell by this picture right here, it's pretty intense. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the jump, you're going to get in the air, and you're going to let go of the bike entirely. Hands aren't touching it, feet aren't touching it, you're just flying in the air like Superman. Theoretically, you're supposed to grab the bike and land back on it and ride away. But anybody who's pulling off a trick like this knows that accidents are going to happen and you're not going to stick it every time. My buddy wasn't fortunate enough to stick it. There was a little bit of a disconnect when he was trying to grab the bike back in the air. He hit the ground, rolled a few times, got a pretty good cut. We're pretty sure he broke some bones. We rushed onto the scene, we picked him up, we got him out of there, we got him to the hospital, straight to the ER. Immediately we were met by doctors, nurses who were able to give him medicine that was able to ease his pain, and they immediately started working on it. Now I want to go back and I want to change one thing in this story, okay? Instead of the United States, this has happened in Canada. In Canada, the average ER wait time is 4 hours. Now, what's the difference? My name is Mr. Swenson. Today I'm going to talk all about capitalism and socialism. The three things that we're going to go over are, first, we're going to define these two things, these two economic structures, socialism and capitalism. The second thing we're going to do, we're going to look at an example of Brazil and their economics and how the switch from socialism and then back to capitalism has affected them. Third thing we're going to do, we're going to compare and we're going to contrast the United States and Canada and their different medical systems. So first, when we're talking about socialism and capitalism, the easiest way that I can explain this to all of you guys, my peers, students, is when we talk about our grades. So, right now, the current structure that we work under is a capitalist structure. It's a free market structure. We all come in, we work hard, we compete, we do our individual assignments, and we're graded based off of that. Everyone's getting an individual grade based off of the amount of work and the amount of effort that they all put into their assignments and the scores that they got on their test. If we wanted our grades to be in a socialistic type structure, this would look a little bit different. It would look more like an average. So let's look at 4 students. The first 2 students, they both get A's, the third one gets a B, and the fourth one gets a D. None of these students are going to get the actual grade that they received because we're operating under a socialistic structure, okay? We're going to average out these grades. They're roughly going to get somewhere between A- and a B+. Not that big of a deal, right? Well, let's go to the next semester or the next test. The 2 students that got A's ended up getting B+ or A-. They're thinking, hey, you know what? This time I'm not going to work as hard. And the kid that got the D that came up to a B, he's like, that was pretty good. I'm not mad about it. So then we get 2 B's, a C, and then a D. This is going to bring our average down even lower. Okay? If this continues on, you're going to see that average go lower and lower and lower. And that's an important thing to keep in mind with the socialistic structure, is that immediately you're not going to see huge changes. It's always going to work fine in the beginning. But after a longer period of time, you're going to see it taper off more and more and more. And ultimately, this socialistic structure is going to deter competition versus the free market capitalist structure that encourages competition, where the individuals are rewarded on an individual basis. Brazil. Brazil is a great example of this. In 2002, they elected their first socialistic president. For the first 4 or 5 years, not a whole lot of change. Economic numbers were all about the same. It wasn't until 2015 where their GDP hit a negative 3.8%. In order to give you a little bit of reference, the United States, 2008, our huge economic crisis, our GDP was at a negative 2%. So we're talking about almost double the 2008 financial crisis. After this, their president, who was socialist, was impeached, and they've kind of switched more to a capitalistic society. In 2021, they're projected to have a positive 2% GDP. Canada. This is where I want to look at the socialized medicine versus the capitalist medicine structure. On average, if you want to get a hip surgery in Canada, 50% of people are going to have to wait longer than 6 months. Compared to the United States, there's going to be 0 people waiting longer than 6 months for a hip structure. Another big thing, breast cancer. Mortality rate in Canada is 25% higher than it is in the United States. This is mostly caused because they have a lack of ability to get these proper screening tests that we offer here in the United States. In conclusion, socialism deters competition. It's going to slow economic growth over the long haul. Capitalism is going to encourage competition, and it's going to produce more economic growth in the long haul. I want you to ask yourself, next time you're in a major accident and need immediate medical attention, which would you prefer?